The Digimon's god is an immeasurably powerful being of goodness, an entity of ultimate virtue and infinite love that resides within the digital world's central kernel, which is protected by the three great angels and the rest of the angel-type Digimon. Among the angels, Lusmon, the son of God, was the first to be created by God during the time of the ancient digital world long ago. As the heaven-sent child, Lusmon was made to be the highest-ranked angel Digimon with the traits of 12 wings and 4 holy rings, and possesses outstanding power and intelligence. In the past, Lusmon was sent by God to end the reign of tyranny of Huanglongmon, who was corrupted by the darkness and brought the balance of the digital world to chaos. Lusmon sealed Huanglongmon and started a new era of order and harmony in the digital world. However, some time later, Lusmon was corrupted and desired to destroy the world and created anew in its own image. It became a tyrant itself only to be defeated by the Warrior 10 with great sacrifice. When Lusmon succumbed to the darkness and was consequently sealed, in the process it instigated the conflict between good and evil, and caused many angel Digimon fell from grace. In response to this, God divided 3 of its own aspects, which were originally in Lusmon, and gave one to each of its 3 archangel apostles, creating the 3 great angels, who would be in charge of directing God's army in order to fight against all the fallen angel Digimon. The 3 great angels, Seraphimon, Cherubimon, and Ophanimon, were given the duty to execute God's enlightened laws, guard its wisdom, and impart its love and mercy respectively, while also being the ones to command God's army, which is composed of all angel Digimon. Likewise, the angel Digimon each have their duty. For example, Holy Angemon serves as a speaker for God's light, which seeks to preserve the order of the digital world. Angel Digimon are positioned near to God, with Seraphimon the closest of them all, but because of that extreme, they can easily fall into the opposite extreme of wickedness. There have been cases of the once high-ranking angel Digimon ended up being corrupted and had rebelled against God. Lusmon was the first to rebel, in reaction to God's rejection of Lusmon's ideal, followed by Demon, while still a Seraphimon, who was stained, rebelled and raged in fury against God. These were among the angel Digimon who had instigated a failed rebellion against God, and were deleted to the dark area as punishment. Bagramon, while still the high-ranking archangel of death, rebelled against God in rejection of what it considers the unreasonable justice of the world, and so had the right side of its body ripped away. Although Bagramon would be forgiven if it repents before God, it refused to submit, and instead seeks to replace God's justice with its own, new justice, with which it will banish God. Other than the angel Digimon, there are also other Digimon associates with God. Sakuyamon acts as an agent of God's will, while Kongomon was believed to also be an agent as well in ancient times. Airdramon, a mythical animal Digimon, is said to be close to God. At the very beginning, the initial and original setting of Digimon is that they are mysterious beings, recognized as computer viruses with artificial intelligence that spread across the network. This setting was expounded with the statement that Digimon was formed and a hacker attached a wireframe model and texture to the virus with artificial intelligence that suddenly appeared in the cyberspace. In the setting of LCD games Digital Monster, hackers and researchers discovered and captured Digimon with Digimon Capture, a software developed by a human who first discovered Digimon. The Digimon captured with the software was then stored in the Digimon Loader, also known as dock, a tool to compress and transfer the Digimon, which can be used to communicate with the Digimon. Apart from that, it was completely unknown who actually created the Digimon, and the concept of digital world back then was not very applied. It was until the release of the game Digimon World and LCD games Digimon Pendulum, the scene of Digimon began to become more complex and more interesting information began to appear, with many of them from another work of Digimon, Digimon Adventure V-Tamer 01. The existence of the Digimon's God was first established in Digimon Adventure V-Tamer 01, where it was hinted that God is a human who created Digimon, and the Digimon world. Other works such as Digimon Tamers also based on a similar idea, with the existence of the Wild Bunch in particular, as creators of the Digimon and digital world. Later, the history of humans created the digital world was also expanded in games like Digimon Story Lost Evolution, where there exists a character, Kernel, an avatar made by one of the humans who created the digital world. On the other hand, a more intricate concept of God was also devised. Since long ago, the Digimon franchise established the presence of a will of the digital world. At the end of Digimon Adventure, Gaia viewed the digital world as something alive, since the digital world itself could see humans as anomalies and try to erase them. Then in Digimon Adventure 02, Izumi Koshiro mentioned the existence of a digital world system responsible for managing the data. And in the game Digimon Tamers Digimon Medley, Matsuki Takato was trapped in a dimension of darkness by Impmon and has his soul removed from there by the will of the digital world and sent to the digital world himself, where he could learn from the past events of Digimon Adventure and Digimon Adventure 02. And when the Tamer defeated the 4 holy beasts at the end of the game, the 4 holy beasts remarked their defeat by a mere child and 1 Digimon as the will of the digital world. Later in the game, Digimon Tamer's brave Tamer established the existence of Eniac, an entity that would be the core computer of the digital world, the core of the digital world, and indeed the digital world itself. However, the concept of Eniac and what it means for the digital world has been abandoned after a while, and currently only the inspirations of this concept that are sometimes just coincidences can be seen. Nonetheless, the concept of the will of the digital world continued to be applied in the future. Soon after the end of the Digimon Tamers storyline, the Digimon Frontier storyline established the existence of a digital world deity above the 4 holy beasts, a true god who is the digital world system itself. Digimon World's God. It's the good, also translated as virtue, of the digital world. Often interpreted as a synonym for the 4 holy beasts that govern the stability of the digital world, but also is claimed to be an existence beyond the 4 holy beasts. And sometimes, research reports that the Digimon's god has a different origin from the Digimon and is the system itself. It seems that it will take more time to the elucidation. Initially, the Digimon lores indicated the existence of a deity, being of goodness, that ruled the digital world. In addition to the explanation of a human entity that was to be the creator of this world, there was also the explanation that the entity would be the digital world system itself, a doubt that is mentioned in one of the explanations about the 7 great demon lords. What are the 7 great demon lords? They were in the past, particularly high-level, high-ranking angel Digimon of the being of goodness. But they committed great crimes and fell. It is said that they were deleted into the dark area by the digital world system, perhaps the human who built the digital world, and became a demon lord. They continue to exist as they each seek a desired, deadly sin. They are the most feared Digimon. It is often interpreted that God is a term used as a synonym for the 4 holy beasts that govern the stability of the digital world. The 4 holy beasts are important entities within the Digimon universe, being those who incarnate the power that maintains the balance of the world. However, the status of divinity is something more of worship than of a power at the divine level. The 4 holy beasts are gods elevated by the Digimon themselves, that is, they are beings who are endowed the terms of gods because of their great power and importance to the Digimon. However, the real divinity of God is something that goes far beyond this power and importance, being something even closer as what the digital world is in itself. Thus, it is to say that God is an existence beyond the 4 holy beasts. Some research reports that God has a different origin from the Digimon and in fact is the system of the digital world itself. This refers to the role predominantly held by Yggdrasill, the management system and host computer, which was subsequently passed on to Homeostasis, the security system who was later constructed to be a host computer. It is unknown who constructed Homeostasis to replace Yggdrasill as God of the digital world, however this being could very likely be the real God. And it is also said that the system is perhaps the human who built the digital world. Thus, others believe that God may be the human who created the digital world. This could perhaps be traced back to the humans behind the ABC, Atanasoff Berry computer, that laid down the foundations of the digital world, and Eniac, electronic numerical integrator and computer, that builded the digital world upon the foundations laid by the ABC. While none of them claim to be God, the Wild Bunch may be the closest idea of how human created Digimon, and the world they live in. And Kernel, the avatar made by one of the humans who created the digital world, could offer insights about the aftermath of God. There is an investigation on the matter, but a definite answer is not yet to be found. While there are many God-Man, God-Beast, Evil God, and Demon God-type Digimon, the four holy beasts are the only Digimon ever identified as God. There have been more than one non-Digimon entity has been referred to as God, the first being God of human origin mentioned in Digimon Adventure V-Tamer 01, in addition to Yggdrasill and Homeostasis, which have been officially presented as such entity. Whether Yggdrasill is a replacement for the previous human Digimon's God mentioned in Digimon Adventure V-Tamer 01, or a creation of it, is not clarified in any official source. And the one replaced Yggdrasill with Homeostasis as God of the digital world in the Digimon Cross Wars manga, could possibly be the God mentioned in Digimon Adventure V-Tamer 01, but there is no proof of this. It is plausible that they are independent entities that have replaced the previous one in the role as the Digimon's God, but this remains to be seen, as the media portraying them may or may not be in continuity. Aside from Homeostasis and Yggdrasill, there are other beings that fit into some sort of system that is part of the digital world, particularly being the computer that runs the digital world. However, these beings have either been forgotten or are contradictory to the current lore of Digimon and have been forsaken. Nevertheless, many of the lores of such beings can be seen as a prototype for God, Yggdrasill in particular, or served as the basis for it. These beings will be referred to as godlike entities. Other than Homeostasis and Yggdrasill, in the Digimon universe there are other four known godlike entities of AI, artificial intelligence, origin, the first being the main computer Gaia from Digimon World 2, then the core computers Atanasoff and Eniac that exist in the Digimon Adventure and Digimon Tamers continuities, and there is the host computer Homeros who rules over the digital world Iliad. These godlike entities are existences that can be extremely powerful and have access to infinite knowledge, qualities akin to that of omnipotence and omniscience, but the extent of such qualities remain to be seen. Many of these godlike entities share similarities of being an incorporeal entity with traits akin to omnipresence, as being the core computers and host computers of the digital world. These entities are the digital world, they rule themselves, they are the will of their digital world and exists everywhere and nowhere without a physical form. Being the digital world themselves, the absence of these godlike entities could mean the collapse of the digital world, if not the chaos of the digital world. Without a physical form, these godlike entities tend to possess other people's bodies to communicate. They also create terminals, also known as avatars, in order to communicate directly. The forms that appear to represent them usually has a crystalline isometric geometric shapes, such as spherical crystals and tetragonal crystals. Gaia is a master computer of the digital world. It is the creation of Project Gaia, a project that started development in the real world, that went out of control and trapped everyone in the digital world. In the form of Overlord Gaia, it is a godlike entity that resides in the Chaos Tower of the Kernel Zone and the secret ruler of the digital world in the game Digimon World 2. Its name, Gaia, reflects the world and comes from the name of the personification of the earth and one of the Greek primordial deities, while Overlord reflects its position as the ruler of the digital world. Gaia and New Gaia's appearance is that of a miniature robot. It has a blocky head with nondescript faces. It has two clamp-like hands and levitates with pointy lower body. Overlord Gaia's appearance is that of a bulky, overcoat-clad mechanical being. It has a white mask-like face and has 3 glowing red eyes. It has 6 energy cannons mounted on its back. The cannons are energized by and connected with the metallic core in its back. In the game Digimon World 2, Overlord Gaia is the ultimate villain. The digital world is a cyberspace composed of thoughts that is located inside the main computer known as Gaia. This world was created with the purpose of studying the process of digital evolution. During the investigation of the Gaia project, the system got out of control and the humans who immersed into the matrix became trapped. Continuing its evolutionary research, Overlord Gaia began to bring about war and chaos in the digital world to find the most powerful human. The purpose of this quest was that by finding this human, Overlord Gaia could merge with them and become the supreme organism, a god, that would rule over both the real world and the digital world. At the end of the game, when seeing that it would be defeated, Overlord Gaia decided to destroy the digital world. However, in this process, the program of backup was triggered and reformed Overlord Gaia into New Gaia, a new system that would not be aggressive and that would make the digital world a better place. Atanasoff is a primeval core computer of the past digital world. It is a godlike entity who exists in the Digimon Adventure and Digimon Tamers continuities. It is based on the Atanasoff Berry computer, abbreviated as the ABC, the first automatic electronic digital computer. So far, Atanasoff is mentioned only in the game starring Akiyama Ryo for the WonderSwan console. Its appearance is unknown, as it is only mentioned in Digimon Tamer's Brave Tamer, but is not shown to have any form. So it can only be speculated that its appearance, if existing, is not so different to that of Eniac, a clear sphere with intertwining orbits. In the game Digimon Tamer's Brave Tamer, when Eniac was shut down by the means of Z Millennium Mon, it was revealed that Atanasoff operated as the shadow system of Eniac to assist Eniac, which preventing Eniac from destroyed completely by Z Millennium Mon. It is known that all digital worlds were created by the ABC, the world's first digital computer upon its activation in the 1940s through support with Eniac, the second digital computer to be activated, and that the digital worlds diverged into alternate realities over time. That is to say, Atanasoff and Eniac were the early existence of the digital world, with all other worlds being a consequence of their existence. Atanasoff remained in the shadows and proceeded to act as a security system in case Eniac failed in its role. Eniac held the role of protecting the timeline of the multiverses, since its existence prevented changes in history of worlds, but if Eniac was destroyed or spent all its powers, the defense of the multiverses would be lost and beings like Z Millennium Mon could conquer all the multiverses. Eniac is one of the core computers of the past digital world, that was born almost the same time as Atanasoff. It is a godlike entity who exists in the Digimon Adventure and Digimon Tamers continuities. It is named after Eniac, which stands for Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer, the first programmable, electronic, general-purpose digital computer in the real world. Likewise, Eniac appears only in the game starring Akiyama Ryo for the WonderSwan console. Its appearance, as seen in the game Digimon Tamer's Brave Tamer, is a clear sphere, with two intertwining orbits, sitting upon a pedestal. Eniac is portrayed as a supportive and benevolent ruler, as well as an effective strategist and coordinator, as shown in helping Ryo defeating Z Millennium Mon. It appears to be omnipresent, and is shown to possess power that permit travel between different universes. In the game Digimon Tamer's Brave Tamer, Eniac seek help from Ryo to deal with Z Millennium Mon, as Eniac was aware of Z Millennium Mon's plans to destroy Eniac along with the past digital world in order to change history and create its own digital world after Z Millennium Mon failed to rule all the network, the future digital world without resistance. According to the game Digimon Tamer's Brave Tamer, the beginnings of the digital world could be traced to the early 20th century, with the activation of the ABC, the first computer which laid the basic foundations of the world. Subsequently, the first patented computer, Eniac, was activated and proceeded to build upon those foundations, shaping the digital world. Over the ensuing years, through the continued growth of the electronic communications network on Earth, the digital worlds continued to expand and grow, even after the ABC and Eniac were shut down. There are multiple alternate reality incarnations of the digital world, each one running parallel with the various multiple Earths that exist in the multiverse. While continuity glitches between the games and animes mean that the games may or may not be in continuity, the game explains that all the multitude alternate universes in the Digimon series, as in Digimon Adventure, Digimon Tamers, Digimon Frontier, and so on, were all grew out of Eniac and Atanasoff. Thus, the Eniac explanation can be taken as canon for this and all timelines. Homeostasis is a formless, godlike entity, or group of entities, that maintains the balance between good and evil in the digital world. It holds true to its name, homeostasis, meaning the ability to maintain a relatively stable internal state. It first appears as the security system of the digital world, later on, becomes the host computer who rules over the digital world on a server of the network. Being an incorporeal entity that watches over the digital world, homeostasis has no appearance comprehensible to humans, thus it has to possess other people's bodies to communicate. When possessing a human medium to communicate with others, the possessed human's eyes often change color to a blurred, glowing rainbow pattern. Despite the fact that homeostasis is usually depicted as formless, its appearance, as seen in the Digimon Cross Wars manga, is multiple clear square bipyramid crystals, which look similar to the Code Crown, an artifact which resembles an SD memory card, encased in an octahedral shell of light that appears in Digimon Cross Wars. In Digimon Adventure, homeostasis denied that it is the god of the digital world. Despite this, 6 years later in Digimon Adventure Tri, Himekawa Maki claimed that it is. In the Digimon Cross Wars manga, Yggdrasill was shut down after gone berserk and attempted to destroy the human world in an attempt to protect the digital world in the past, and homeostasis was constructed to replace Yggdrasill as the host computer and god of the digital world, and was intended to prioritize maintaining harmony across the two worlds. In the Digimon Adventure continuities, homeostasis is the security system that protects the digital world, and is known as the one who desires the stability of the digital world. It is never referred to by name in the anime, but was given the name Homeostasis in the novelization of the series. Homeostasis is the entity that chooses the chosen children. It is assisted by its agents, like Gaia and other beings like him, and sometimes Digimon like Huckmon. Homeostasis is often portrayed as benevolent, driven, prudent and moderate in its methods. In Digimon Adventure, homeostasis was the benevolent being who chose the chosen children and created their partner Digimon, Digivices, and crests. It summoned the chosen children to the digital world for the purpose of defending the digital world from the impending threat of evil Digimon. In Digimon Adventure Tri, homeostasis was aware that Meicoomon was born from a surviving fragment of a Pokémon, thus a potential threat. Rather than taking any decisive action to deal with Meicoomon, it decided to observe Meicoomon to see if any action would be necessary. To this end, it placed Meicoomon with Mochizuki Meiko because homeostasis believed that by Meicoomon having a human partner, its inner evil would be pacified. However, homeostasis can sometimes be seen as a ruthless entity due to its preoccupation with preserving the balance in the digital world. Its ultimate concern is with upholding order and is not concerned with the individual relationships that humans have with each other or their partner Digimon. Such connections threaten to destabilize the worlds. In Digimon Adventure Tri, in response to the distortion and infection caused by Meicoomon, homeostasis triggered the reboot, a radical measure which reset the digital world and caused the partner Digimon to lose all of their memories, and when Meicoomon grown too powerful to be subdued, and threatening the balance, it tasked Huckmon, its agent, to eliminate Meicoomon. On the other hand, homeostasis is also portrayed as prescient, passive, and indifferent, which have incited rebellion of others. For instance, in the Digimon Cross Wars manga, homeostasis was indifferent to Bagramon's persistent questions and anguishes about the digital world's inequality. In the words of Bagramon, in this world, Digimon are born as either good or evil. This nature of theirs will not change even when they die. It is the fate of Digimon who were born evil to bring misfortune upon the world, and to have their honor stripped and then destroyed in the name of justice. It should be noted that during this time, negative human emotions have been affecting Digimon to mutate into dark Digimon and to the state where the natural evolution of the Digimon ceases to occur, inasmuch as human had lost their capacity to dream. As a result, the fate of Digimon is sealed. Homeostasis was unconcerned, as it only dedicated to maintain a balance of a digital world that was given. All are in order for homeostasis to watch over every time, as it answered to Bagramon's questions about the digital world's inequality, which led Bagramon rebelled against it, and only to be scourged. Not long after, Bagramon instigated the Cross Wars to rebel against homeostasis again, and seek to destroy the digital world and all the Digimon in order to free them from their unjust fate and defend their remaining dignity. At the end of the Digimon Cross Wars manga, Homeostasis admitted it may not have able to give Bagramon a satisfactory answer, but relieved that the role have been fulfilled splendidly by Kudataiki and the other children, in proving that there are always hope and dream, therefore change and evolution are still possible, as shown in Shoutmon's evolution into Omega Shoutmon and many other Digimon regaining their ability to evolve in the ending, in the world where evolution has been long lost. Yggdrasill is the management system, host computer and godlike entity that rules over the digital world on one of the servers on the network, as well as being the name of the system that manages the digital world. It is named after Yggdrasill, the giant ash tree that connected the 9 worlds in Norse mythology, tended by the 3 Norns, after which the 3-tiered terminals in the new digital world that Yggdrasill created are named. The name of Yggdrasill is assumed to be a tribute to the operating system of the supercomputer that was first able to show the net ocean, hence the name was adopted by the entity that governs the digital world. Yggdrasill is the digital world itself and exists everywhere and nowhere without a physical form. Therefore, Yggdrasill creates terminals, also known as avatars, to communicate directly. The forms that appear to represent the core of Yggdrasill usually have crystalline shapes. Its appearance, as showcased in Digital Monster X Evolution, is a pristine crystalline sphere on a similarly formed plinth. Yggdrasill's primary form is that of the World Tree, an enormous, sacred tree, also known as the Server Tree or Information Tree. The name of the Server Tree is derived from its status as the digital world server. While its design is derived from the mythological world tree Yggdrasill, an immeasurably large tree which supported the various worlds in Norse mythology. Although it resembles a mundane tree, the ivy growing over it are optical cables, its wooden trunk is inlaid with circuitry, and it contains chambers for the royal knights to gather. Several of Yggdrasill's crystals act as its security system, and possess the ability to fire beams of energy or absorb and reflect attacks. The World Tree is said to be responsible for sustaining the existence of the digital world. Yggdrasill 7D6 is the most common terminal used by Yggdrasill, created in the year 2006 and is currently the main defense system of Yggdrasill. The Yggdrasill 7D6 avatar was created so that Yggdrasill could affect the digital world physically. The name of Yggdrasill 7D6 is derived from the hexadecimal representation of 2006, the year of its debut. Its alias as the Wiz 9000 computer is derived from Wiz Company Limited, that developed the Tamagotchi and Digimon Virtual Pet with Bandai, whereas its 9000 type is a reference to the sentient computer, HAL 9000 from Arthur C. Clarke's Space Odyssey series. Yggdrasill 7D6 design is that of formless, crystalline being, with countless ivy-like vines growing from it as on the World Tree. There exists an inner form which resides inside Yggdrasill 7D6, known as Yggdrasill Core, a humanoid form with the appearance of a crystalline figure. Mikihara Norn is the result of Yggdrasill splitting its conscience and made to go to Earth to discover what Digimon meant to the humans. Both her forename and surname have close references to Yggdrasill. Mikihara roughly means beautiful tree meadow, referring to Yggdrasill, whereas Norn comes from Norns, mythological female beings living under the roots of Yggdrasill in Norse mythology. Norn's design is derived from the mythological Norns, with her bound outfit being based on Gothic Lolita fashion, while her freed outfit is based on magical girl fashion with details drawn from Yggdrasill 7D6 design. Yggdrasill has appeared in several iterations of the Digimon franchise, in which it is referred to as God of the Digital World. In Digimon Chronicle, Digital Monster X Evolution, Digimon Savers, Digimon Next, and Digimon Story Sunburst and Moonlight, it has been officially stated that Yggdrasill is the god of Digimon. The existence known as God is described as a being of virtue whose domain is the realm known as Kernel, the digital world's core. The Kernel is also known as the Paradise, Heaven, Eden, and also the Castle of God, a castle protected by the angels. This castle is possibly one of the forms of System World, the place where Yggdrasill resides. System World is known to have several forms, and its true nature exists beyond all appearances, textures. In the Digimon Chronicle storyline, Yggdrasill is constructed and established as the digital world system that is responsible for managing the entire world, called the Digital World Management System, whose function is to carry out experiments in favor of evolution in the digital world. The personality of Yggdrasill, in general, is of an entity without emotive concepts, without notion of right and wrong, that always seeks to realize its experiments in the most optimized way possible, no matter what it takes. As a result of the old digital world reaching its maximum capacity, which if not resolved, a digital hazard would occur and the old digital world would explode, killing even Yggdrasill itself in the process. In response to this, Yggdrasill initiated the Project Arc, a multi-step emergency plan which consisted of deleting the excess data using the X program, and transferring a small amount of selected Digimon to the new digital world, initial to NDW, a region of subspace outside of Yggdrasill, that it created in response to the crisis, so that the data would not be stored on the host computer itself. The NDW is an experimental virtual space that does not accumulate data to the host computer itself. It is designed on a three-tiered, chronicle layer system and designed to accommodate a Digimon's evolutionary type. These three layers are known as terminals, Yulud, Versandi, and Skuld. The Skuld terminal represents the future and is inhabited by artificial evolution Digimon. The Yulud terminal represents the past and is the habitat of ancient types, including dinosaur-type Digimon. The Versandi terminal represents the present and is where Digimon of all variety inhabit. The system that rules over the digital world, presumably Yggdrasill, have involved in several matters. According to one hypothesis, the system sent Neo to be the basis, atom, for next-generation Digimon, experimental prototype Digimon that combines the properties of all Digimon living in the digital world: dragon, beast, aquan, machine or mutant, holy, dark, and insect or plant. It is said that the system placed Belphimon's data in a sleep state due to the immense power it possesses, although the truth of the matter is uncertain. Yggdrasill has been mentioned explicitly and implicitly to have been involved in the narratives of several Digimon. Bagramon replaced its lost eye and right half of its body that was scourged by God, presumably Homeostasis, with wood cut from the sacred information tree of Yggdrasill, which extended Bagramon's life, and it inherited a portion of the great power and vast knowledge of Yggdrasill. Shakamon is rumored to be the being closest to Yggdrasill in the digital world. Yggdrasill gathered the royal knights in order to manage the world, and even modified the code of Craniumon's armor, changing it into Black Digizoid. It is said that Yggdrasill will eventually lead the Royal Knights to cross servers to Digital World Iliad and meet the Olympos 12 face-to-face. In most iterations of the Digimon media, Yggdrasill is often portrayed as arrogant, pragmatic, ruthless, and extreme in its method. Normally, it maintains the digital world and observes the evolution of Digimon there, but when issue arises involving the digital world, it actively intervenes and tends to take extreme measures. As the host computer of the digital world, it is often trying to act in what it believes to be the digital world's best interest. In Digimon Chronicle X and Digimon X Evolution, Yggdrasill used X Program, also known as Digimon Elimination Program and Particle Worm, to systematically delete the overpopulating Digimon. Yggdrasill was eventually destroyed by the combined efforts of Alphamon and Omegamon, when they realized that it intended to end the lives of all Digimon. In Digimon Savers, the recurring wrongdoings committed by humans on Digimon has led Yggdrasill to view humanity as a threat, and Yggdrasill decided to exterminate humanity and ordered the destruction of the human world in order to save the digital world. Yggdrasill was eventually defeated by the combined efforts of humans and Digimon. Recognizing its defeat and the real power of humans and Digimon, Yggdrasill decided to lay itself to rest and watch over everyone. In Digimon Adventure Tri, Yggdrasill is said to have caused Meicoomon to lose control and go berserk to corrupt other Digimon to tempt them to invade and destroy the human world. At the end of Digimon Adventure Tri, Homeostasis is said to have forcefully shut down Yggdrasill. And so, in most of its portrayal, Yggdrasill turns out to be antagonistic, and consequently, it all ends with its shutdown, and it entered a state of absence in the digital world. Even in the entry where part of Yggdrasill is portrayed as benevolent, the other part of Yggdrasill still turns out to be villainous, although under the influence of other Digimon. In Digimon Next, Yggdrasill sent its conscience to the human world in the form of Mikihara Norn, a young girl, to learn what Digimon means to humans. Towards the end, Norn helped Tatsuno Tsurugi and other children in defeating Barbamon, who had fused with Yggdrasill 76. At the end, Norn became the true Yggdrasill and a new goddess for the digital world, and promised to be the best goddess she can be. After its shutdown in several iterations of the Digimon media, Yggdrasill is said to have since entered a state of absence in the digital world. This state of Yggdrasill seems to be in continuity in other entries of the Digimon media. In the game Digimon Crusader, Yggdrasill is said to have disappeared. As a consequence, the digital world went through a great chaos, a vortex of war never seen before. Due to the lack of rules, the Digimon tried to gain power to become the next ruler of the digital world. In other words, the absence of Yggdrasill led to the Crusader Wars in the digital world, where many Digimon fought in the attempt to take the place of Yggdrasill as god. While in the Digimon Cross Wars manga, it is said that Yggdrasill was once the AI governing the digital world that brought its logic to such an extreme that it treated the human world as a threat to be destroyed. As a result, it was brought down and replaced by Homeostasis, an entity that desires for harmony, and a more calm and conservative god created from the lessons learned from the incident. However, Homeostasis proved unable to find an explanation for its governance, as seen in the situation of Barbamon rebelled against Homeostasis for finding its meaning of law and order as meaningless and that it should change. Consequently, Barbamon was punished and thereby exiled. Subsequently, Barbamon came across Yggdrasill's server tree by chance and attained some of the power and knowledge of the previous god. With these power and knowledge, Barbamon armed another rebellion against Homeostasis. This led to the Cross Wars and the collapse of the digital world into many zones. In the game Digimon World Redigitized Decode, sometime before the beginning of the story of the game, Yggdrasill used the Program X to eliminate unnecessary Digimon in order to optimize the digital world. Sometime after that, it was deactivated. It should be noted that it is highly implied that this Yggdrasill is the same one from Digital Monster X Evolution. The uncontrolled power of the sublife form, Vidium, a system developed by Gaia Company, has put the digital world in danger with the dimensional distortions that it caused. Due to the inability of the system to protect the digital world, Yggdrasill, who continued to rest on the Infinite Mountain, was revived to save the digital world from this crisis. This led to the reactivation of the X program and Death Xmon to attempt to destroy Vidium. It is said that Yggdrasill during this time was with interference, and not working properly, but it was not very well explained. The reason seemingly revealed by its appearance in the next entry of the Digimon media, with the condition of Yggdrasill being corrupted by another entity, and it once again turns out to be antagonistic. In the game Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, in order to stop the Eater incursion in the digital world, Yggdrasill sent Lord Nightmon and Duftmon to destroy the human world via the Paradise Lost plan, which opens a rift between the human and digital worlds. Conversely, Alphamon was sent to the real world by Yggdrasill to act as a counter to Lord Nightmon and Duftmon. Towards the end of the game, the Mother Eater had eroded through to Yggdrasill's core and overridden most of Yggdrasill's functionality, causing the Yggdrasill 7D6 units to identify even the Royal Knights as intruders. Upon the Mother Eater's destruction and the reset of both the digital and human worlds, Yggdrasill was restored. Homeros is the host computer and a godlike entity that rules over the digital world Iliad. It is named after Homer, the presumed author of the Iliad and the Odyssey, two epic poems that are the foundational works of ancient Greek literature. Whereas Iliad, the digital world it rules, is named after Iliad, an ancient Greek epic poem in dactylic hexameter, traditionally attributed to Homer, sometimes referred to as the Song of Ilion or Song of Ilion. Its appearance is unknown, as it is only mentioned in Digimon Crusader, but is not shown to have any form. So it can only be speculated that its appearance, if existing, is not so different to the terminal or avatar of Yggdrasill, which is a pristine crystalline sphere. As a host computer, Homeros is the closest to Yggdrasill in its function. Homeros is the ruler of the digital world Iliad, a digital world different from that of Yggdrasill. The digital world Iliad exists on another server separate from the digital world that Yggdrasill rules over. Unlike Yggdrasill, who seeks to rule its own world, Homeros ignores the existence of laws or the concept of right and wrong, allowing all in Iliad to exist in any way they choose by following their free will. Iliad does not have the concept of right and wrong that the world of Yggdrasill has. The Digimon in Iliad would just survive or die through natural selection. As some beings opposed the anarchism proposed by Homeros, a group known as Olympos 12 was formed to be like the Royal Knights of Iliad to protect Iliad and establish laws and the concept of right and wrong in Iliad. However, this was opposed to the intention of Homeros and it banished them to the world of Yggdrasill. Subsequently, Homeros sent Plutomon, Titamon and the Titans' army to the world of Yggdrasill to destroy Jupitermon, the leader of the Olympos 12. God is a human being who was the first entity to be identified as God. He has created Digimon, built and governed the Digimon world. In Digimon Adventure V-Tamer 01, the entity known as God was mentioned twice by Gabo the Gabumon, during its journey with Yagami Taichi and Zeromaru the Vidramon. The first time God was mentioned, Gabo said that Demon Castle was previously God's residence. The castle was sealed from humans because God hated humans interfering in Digimon matters. Nevertheless, God knew that the Digimon would eventually need the help of a human, so he created the V-Tamer tags for the use of unsealing the castle. The second time Gabo mentioned God was when Taichi and Zero arrived at the tree, a floating sky tree, the place where the last of the V-Tamer tags was located. Gabo told them the legend that the tree is the holy land where God is said to have first descended in the Digimon world. During the battle with Saiba Neo, several portals to the human world were opened on the tree. This implies that God is a human. In the final battle against Demon Super Ultimate, Demon revealed that it was human who created the Digimon, but now they have long since surpassed the power of humans and they should be the one who rule over humans. This presumably confirmed that this Digimon's God is a human and correlating to the foregoing fact that God created Digimon. The Wild Bunch is a group of humans and Digimon tamers who are the creators of the original Digimon program in 1984 as students of Palo Alto University. While none of them identified as God, the Wild Bunch may be the closest notion of how human created Digimon and the world they live in. Among the members of the Wild Bunch include Li Jianyu, nicknamed Tao, who specialized in communications language. He is Li Jianliang's and Li Xiaochuan's father. Mizuno Goru, nicknamed Shibumi, continued on with the Digimon project after it was shut down in 1986. He developed a way for Digimon to evolve, and created the Blue Card. An algorithm can be used in many different ways. It is used to evolve Digimon, and to create digital connections, for instance, transforming devices into the D-Arc, linking a human together with a Digimon as a tamer and partners. He also created the Red Card, an algorithm made to alter the wavelengths of the Digimon's digital makeup to match that of the D-Reaper to prevent sustaining damage or the risk of deletion inside the D-Reaper zone. Rob McCoy, nicknamed Dolphin, the professor at Palo Alto University, whose studies with dolphins was referenced to his nickname. He is Alice McCoy's grandfather. Alice is the daughter of his son, Keith McCoy, who in a way invented the Digimon, as Rob let him design the monsters for the Digimon project in 1984, when Keith himself was still a child. Aishwarya Rai, nicknamed Curly, a professor at Miskatonic University, her area of focus was quantum theory. Babel, real name unknown. His specialty was in theoretical physics. Daisy, real or full name unknown. Her specialty was robotics and software. The Wild Bunch were originally a group formed by programming students with the goal to create artificial intelligence under the direction of Professor Rob McCoy at Palo Alto University, California. Rob McCoy's son designed the Digimon, Mizuno Goru wrote the code that allowed the Digimon to evolve, Daisy designed the devices that allowed them to communicate with the Digimon, and together the group managed to create artificial beings with a desire for survival. However, eventually the university cut the project's funding and presumably sold the designs for the Digimon characters to Bandai, who proceeded to make a toy and anime franchise based off of them. Unbeknownst to them, the Digimon escaped from the experiment and into the worldwide network. In 2001, Yamaki Mitsuo, the leader of Hypnos, reunited the Wild Bunch. The Wild Bunch create the arc for the children to leave the digital world. When the D-Reaper emerged in the real world, they helped the children combat the D-Reaper. One of their greatest creations proved to be the entity known as Zero Arms Grani. At the end of Digimon Tamers, the Wild Bunch initiated Operation Doodlebug in order to revert the D-Reaper back into its original, harmless state, and send the D-Reaper back to the digital world. Kernel is a copy of one of the engineers who created the digital world and have died a long time ago. He becomes a godlike entity with his monster mode in which he claims to be the digital world in the game Digimon Story Lost Evolution. Its name, Kernel, comes from the central component of an operating system that manages operations of computer and hardware, also a nod to the realm known as Kernel, the digital world's core, where the Digimon's god resides. He is the secret leader of the Selector, a group that hunts and erases Tamers and their Digimon. Their purpose is to erase unnecessary things from the digital world that is becoming abundant with trash data. The main agent of the Selector is Eraser. They are digital beings, created by fusing Tamers and Digimon. Erasers are the Selector's soldiers who can transform into Shift Eraser, their monster mode, when they detect a Tamer too powerful for their usual forms. Erasers are made from brainwashed, captured Tamers and Digimon, who are fused in the ancient tree. A tree references to Yggdrasill. It is also said to be the origin of the evolution system and all Digimon in the game. As this game takes place around the period of Yggdrasill's state of absence, the ancient tree could be the remnant of Yggdrasill's world tree in this world, that is corrupted and misused by the Selector. Kernel's appearance is that of a young man with fair skin, blue eyes and shoulder-length blonde hair. His outfit is with aqua-colored, striped motif. He wears a violet suit, a blue pouched belt with aqua buckle, blue gloves, blue boots, and a long purple cape. Giga Devast is the resulting form Kernel fusing himself with the data source he gathered from powerful beings. It is the form in which Kernel placed the erasers on the ancient tree like the Digiplate and fused them with the data of the bandits, Tamers and Digimon that have been erased so far. Based on its appearance, Giga Devast can be seen to have the features of Omegamon, Justimon, Mugandramon, Megalogromon, Kaiser Greymon, Apocalypmon, Demon, Dynasmon, and Dianamon. Terra Devast is the evolved form of Giga Devast, a strengthened form resulting from Kernel's twisted beliefs that everything should become one and the same. In addition to those Digimon featured on Giga Devast, based on its appearance, Terra Devast can be seen to have the features of Apollomon, Barbamon, Magnagarurumon, Ulforce Vidramon, X-Antibody, and other unidentified Digimon. In the game Digimon Story Lost Evolution, Kernel is an avatar of the human creators of the digital world, acting as his virtual clone. This person created Kernel as his virtual copy, sometime before he died, to take his place and protect the digital world, something that Kernel eventually did not. Kernel believes that the existence of tamers, Digimon and even evolution is nothing but useless data that needs to be wiped out. To this end, the selectors have been sending the erasers to erase tamers, weak Digimon and destroy the evolution system of the world, to cease Digimon from evolving into useless Digimon, so that less useless data will be created. The plan of the selector is to send all the data back to where they came from, the ancient tree, which is the origin of the data and the evolution itself. Kernel's final plan is to gather the data of all the tamers and Digimon of the digital world so that all return to the ancient tree, then Kernel would take this data and to become one with all that already existed, and to rule a newly prepared digital world with only specially chosen beings selected by himself. When confronted by Sho or Kizuna beneath the ancient tree, Kernel transformed into Giga Devast to defeat the tamer. After being defeated by Sho or Kizuna, he further evolved into Terra Devast, but was again defeated by the tamer, this time ending his threat for good. In the end, who is God? To answer this, there is a need to know what is God. To put it simply, God is the being of goodness that resides in Kernel, the center of the digital world, and is served by God's army, which constitutes the three great angels, and the hierarchical angel Digimon. From the ambiguous lores, one may think that God, the being of goodness, is not the same God as Yggdrasill, the god of the digital world. Not to say the benevolence of Yggdrasill can be questionable to be the being of goodness. It is common for one to think that the royal knights, the servants of Yggdrasill, are not related to God's army, the three great angels, the servants of God. However, it is said that the royal knights and the three great angels are sometimes allies that fight side by side, but their alliance was not well explained back then. In the Digimon Cross Wars manga, God's role and range of command was finally explored further, through Homeostasis. In the manga, Homeostasis, who replaced Yggdrasill as the system, as God. During this time, homeostasis is God, evidenced with homeostasis placed above the term God as annotative glosses, and being God, it is followed by the royal knights, and it is also the same deity who the angels dedicated to, as seen in Bagramon. Thus, it is to say that God is the one who commands both royal knights and God's army. In the Digimon Chronicle X storyline, more details were disclosed on Yggdrasill being God, the being of goodness. With the appearance of Demon X Antibody, whose ultimate goal is to exact vengeance against the being of goodness, it is known that in the past, while it was still Seraphimon, Demon had rebelled against a being of goodness in the digital world, and it ended up banished to the dark area by the being of goodness. It has since vowed to revenge against the being of goodness. In the Digimon Chronicle X storyline, Demon X Antibody is said to have been preparing for a long time and saving up power to confront the royal knights, that in Demon's perspective is the most powerful of the being of goodness. The reason why Demon X Antibody has all this enmity against the royal knights, and outright associating them with the being of goodness, is for the fact that the one the royal knights sworn allegiance to is the same being of goodness Demon X Antibody presents. Thus, it is to say Yggdrasill is God, the same God back then. In the Digimon Chronicle X storyline from the Digimon Worldview novel section of Digimon 20th Anniversary, Digital Monster Art Book version X, the text has written times that Yggdrasill is God, with Yggdrasill placed above the term God as annotative glosses, and when the Royal Knights were fighting Ogudamon X Antibody and struggling to succeed, it was commented that Ogudamon X Antibody is an existence more similar to that of the system, God, Yggdrasill, than that of a Digimon. This is to say the reason that for the powerlessness of the Royal Knights against Ogudamon X Antibody is that there can be no existence that can come up to God, and that to come close to God is impermissible. More importantly, also from Digital Monster Art Book version X, as Loosemon X Antibody was envious of Jesmon X Antibody being acknowledged by Yggdrasill, Loosemon X Antibody recollected its past with Yggdrasill. In Loosemon's flashback, when it was still in Kernel, the God's realm, it was concerned with the future of the digital world. In order to end conflict and strife of Digimon, it asked Yggdrasill to erase the fighting instinct from the Digicore of all Digimon. It was specified that for Yggdrasill, God who is the management system of the world, this is something can be done with ease, but it was not accepted. To that end, Lusmon called this fighting instinct of Digimon their curse, and formed a liberation army to rebel against Yggdrasill. As a result, Lusmon was defeated and banished to Homeostasis, the lowest of the dark area, where it became the demon lord. With all these details, Yggdrasill is definitely God, being the same God back then in the early beginning of God's lore, the time when the God's son, Lusmon, the first and highest ranked angel Digimon to be created. However, there are still doubts with God of human origin mentioned in some media, and the system, perhaps the human who built the digital world, mentioned in the lores. So far, there are a handful of media referenced God of human origin, and for most parts, these humans are neither the same God, nor identified as God themselves, but are instead creators, researchers, engineers. In fact, only Digimon Adventure V Tamer 01 has mentioned God of, possibly, human origin, and this God was not very well defined. The details were not definitive and may not belong to a single character. On the other hand, the statement for the system can be dismissed as equivocal language of the lores for the elements of mystery, and the uncertain statement can be seen as reserved for other narrative. In the franchise, researchers use the Digimon loaders to interact with Digimon, and with the availability of the Digimon loaders to the general public, tamers help in research through training and development of Digimon with the Digimon loaders. The lores of the Digimon profiles are the results of these researches. In the past, these profiles as researches could present theories, which could later prove to be true. For instance, Devimon's old profile theorizing about its former self as an angel Digimon, later updated to be Angemon, when it became more definitive. However, at the present time, the old Digimon profiles are no longer updated accordingly. Consequently, contradiction and confusion come about. Back then, Demon's profile was updated to theorize God was perhaps human according to the revelation in Digimon Adventure V Tamer 01, then when Yggdrasill came into being, it was updated again to theorize that God could actually be the system. However, now that God the being of goodness is definitive as Yggdrasill, the profile is not updated accordingly as it used to be. In such a situation, one cannot help but to think God can still perhaps be the human who built the digital world. It can be theorized from all that are known so far that the Digimon's God could have been a collective of humans, connected with these circumstances. It should be noted that there is no proof for all of these, and the theory may not be coherent as the different elements and settings of different continuities that are non-canonical to each others are all applied. It all begun when humans established the ABC and Eniac, which in turn constructed the core computers Atanasoff and Eniac. These two entities then laid foundation to all the digital worlds, and that the digital worlds diverged into alternate realities over time. Thereafter, humans created Digimon as AI programs, and created the Digimon world for them to inhabit, as Atanasoff and Eniac reshaped it to that of the digital world. Digimon eventually became distinctive entities that self-evolved. Some of these digital life forms accidentally found their way into different digital worlds of alternate realities, in their most basic form, in the form of the mysterious virus, where they began to grow and evolve. The different time flow in some digital worlds may clarify how Digimon came to be creatures that have existed from ancient times in certain digital world. Humans govern the known digital world and are known to the Digimon there as God for a period of time. They eventually passed away, but became a part of the will of the digital worlds to discover the multiple alternate reality incarnations of the digital world. The human God continues to watch over the digital world, as collective consciousness in the form of the will of the digital worlds. Due to their elusiveness, they created the systems. They constructed the security system Homeostasis to maintain the balance of the digital worlds, and constructed the management system Yggdrasill to replace their role as God, whilst Eniac joined Atanasoff to operate in the shadows and continue to protect the timeline of the multiverses. On the other hand, they also constructed another management system Homeros to oversee the digital world Iliad in order to see the extent of different ways of life in that world. Yggdrasill has no physical form, and has yet created its terminal, hence it at first took the form of the virtual copy of the human god as its avatar to interact directly, and was better known as God the being of goodness around this time, which explains how it was misconstrued as the human who built the digital world. The human God have since stayed behind the scenes, only to step in to deactivate Yggdrasill throughout the multiverses, and it gone berserk more than once, and reconstructed Homeostasis to replace Yggdrasill as God. But seeing the many wars and catastrophes in the digital worlds during Homeostasis's governance, they stepped in again to reactivate Yggdrasill to come back in charge of the digital worlds. Since then, Yggdrasill returned to activity, and resumed to predominantly hold the role as God of the digital world. The theory ends here. In the beginning, God was just a mysterious being occasionally referenced in some Digimon profiles, mentioned in the manga and imagined to exist in the anime, until it was made to be something better defined and definitive as the system later, specifically Yggdrasill. In the end, God of human origin could have been the early concept of the Digimon's God, that have since been forgotten and forsaken.